And you, young lady, wait for me in my study.
But, Father, Pip didn't have anything to do with it. I'm to blame.
Then his punishment was earned. He is too easily led. By you. In point of fact, they are all led by you. Why? Why do you force me to punish you?
I'm sorry, Father.
Are you? Do you know you are a bad influence on the rest of the children? You have certain unusual traits. Your mother recognized this before she died. I am forced to the same conclusion. I assured your mother that I would take special care with you. There seems no doubt that you are highly intelligent, perhaps more so than the others. It is therefore necessary to make a special provision for you. You will understand that the course I have decided to take is for your future benefit.
Yes, Father, but what?
That is all for the present. You will go to your room.
Well, I am absolutely blessed to have the wonderful Jennifer Cluff with me today, talking about her life and everything that she's done in her life since the incredibly iconic acting that you did in the marvelous Seven Little Australians when you were, how old were you at the time, Jennifer?
I was 16.
16. Oh gosh, you looked a bit more mature than 16, didn't you?
No, I was 16. Judy was 13. I was 16.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so I want to sort of explore all the things that you've been doing since then, because you've had a very full life doing some wonderful things. So just to start, I thought I'd ask a few questions about Seven Little Australians. So this is the book by Ethel Turner, which is the classic Australian book. I think it's on most reading lists for schools, isn't it? That book.
I really don't know anymore what's going on as regards that.
Yes.
I couldn't tell you. And listen, before we get going, thank you so much for this, Medyhne. Thank you. It's lovely to be here talking with you.
Oh,
so,
thank you.
Off you go. Ask away.
Okay, thank you. I know you're getting asked a lot, and I'm really feeling I'm honoured that you've, agreed to talk to me, because I know you're super busy, and we'll talk about that soon. But so, Seven Little Australians, oh my gosh, what can you say? It was an amazing book, and it was an incredibly sort of authentic representation of the book. I felt when I watched the series, all the characters seemed to really fit, the persona so well. All the actors that were chosen for the roles seemed to, really suit them very well. And you were, I thought, particularly perfect for that role of Judy, who was really quite a heroine in that role. And I loved her energy, because she was very free-spirited and adventurous and a little bit wild, and all the qualities that I really like. And so how was it for you, that experience and playing that role, and how much was it actually similar to your own character, to who you are as a person?
Not at all. No. So that's 50 years ago.
Yes.
It's 1973. And I lived in a small country town, which I still live in, Mudgee, which was a dust bowl at the time. Nobody passed through here because it was not on a direct route to Dubbo or Bathurst or Orange. We were well and truly off the beaten track. And how did I come to get that part? This is where it's very, very interesting. When you use your imagination to see yourself someplace.
Wow.
Which I had done as a tiny child, to escape into a dream world, but also part of my purpose. Okay, so I had imagined myself as an actor very, very early in my life, and I continued that. And in high school, I did plays and was very good at it. I was very good at being able to see how you could put a play on very easily. Now, Seven Little Australians came along, not to me, but it came to the ABC through Sir Adrian Curlewis wanted to make his mother's book. And they then agreed to do it. It was the first colour show ever shot in Australia, first drama in colour. Most people saw it in black and white at the end of 73. And they then set about casting, and they were very successful getting every character except Judy. Now, I know from my own experience after being cast that everyone I worked with who was about my age had auditioned for the part. All the actresses within a 10-year age group had auditioned, from sort of 13 to 23, had auditioned, and they had never found her. And as a last resort, they had heard that there was someone in a little country town, because a lady doing a workshop with the CWA had come into town, and she had done a little workshop at the school, and I was a part of that workshop. And they must have, whoever was doing the scouting must have approached that woman and asked her, did she know of anybody? And they had my name down for quite a while, but they weren't prepared. One, I was very young. I was under the age that they wanted, because they wanted to avoid the labour laws, child labour laws, which were pretty innocuous then compared to now. And it was too far, and it was too difficult, and I was untrained, and it just seemed like a silly old lady's idea. So they never went there until they were really desperate. And then they rang up my mother and asked me to come and audition. There is another element to this. My Seven Little Australians was read to me when I was 5 by my aunt. And I never read it after that, because every time I saw that book on a shelf in the school library, in the town library, it terrified me. It sent so much emotion running through my body that I would have to look away or walk out of the room or walk away. So I always knew where that book was, so I never went near it.
That's fascinating.
So you have these two things that I created the opportunity for myself through my imagination. I have no doubt about that.
Yes.
None at all.
Yes.
Because the synchronicity of it, and there were so many other things that then came into play, are extraordinary. And the other thing, the emotional attachment that I had to that book, that from the time I was very young, that book was significantly going to alter my life, which it did. It was my HSC year. There's so many things. So there you go. That's how it happened. It happened through an intention.
Brilliant. And I talk about manifesting all the time on my channel. So that's a wonderful example. That having that,
we are more powerful than we realize.
Absolutely. We are co-creators of our reality. And when you have that clear focus on something where you just have 100% clarity, you can manifest anything, really, can't you? And
yeah, there are ways of doing it. There's so many different ways of doing it. And in my work in the last 10 years or 20 years, probably 30 years now, it's the imagination, because the imagination has been downplayed. I grew up being told, and in my early years, my 20s, to stop being a dreamer and to settle down to the reality of life. And of course, there is no reality of life. Life is, as you say, we are co-creating it. And everyone out there is getting that same message, to stop being dreamers, to stop believing in that something greater is possible, to stop believing that you're special, to stop believing there's so many things we're told to stop doing. We are held down constantly, held down. And yet the power rests with us, with our imagination. And it's the greatest tool we have as human beings. And it is the one thing that I would say has been systematically derided in our culture.
Yes. I would agree with that. And I know for myself, I would sit at school and just gaze out the window and daydream. And that was how I got through a very sort of boring and to me it seemed very uninspiring school. And so that's how I would get through, just imagining things. And I always used to write little stories and write songs and things, and that came from that daydreaming, that gazing out the window, and that being that sort of person, I think.
Outside your body totally, not even in the classroom.
Yeah, exactly.
Terrifying place to be, really, a classroom.
Very restrictive.
For so many of us, especially primary school, terrifying. And then further on, if you're not in a safe environment in a high school, absolutely terrifying. So many people's inability to live their purpose comes from those school years that made no sense.
And do you think it's the powers that be deliberately creating that so that, we can be part of the system?
Well, I was very lucky because I had a fantastic high school. So my high school, as I say, I was able to step out of that high school into an extraordinary future. But and there was something going on there that was just extraordinary, and I had the best education.
What school did you go to, can I ask?
Medyhne High School.
Oh, right, yep.
And it's still a very good school. And I had the best French teacher in Australia. I had, if you just listed off, it was fantastic. So I wouldn't say politically that that's the case, but I would say that is the experience for at least 60% of the population.
Yeah.
Because education is never where it needs to be. It's always 30 to 40 years behind what the student requires. Mm-hmm. And that, unfortunately, is, well, maybe that's coming apart now. Maybe now with the big changes that are going to come in the next couple of years with the internet, etc. Maybe all that is just going to fall apart, and there are going to be new paradigms for education.
Absolutely.
I hope so, because children are so smarter than their teachers. That's just evolution, surely.
Yeah, true. And it just doesn't match their energy, and they don't resonate with it. So it can't be sustained long term because it just doesn't match vibrationally. Yeah.
And also you're getting a lot of children born now. And I have a child born who was born with, on a what they would call a spectrum now, if he was ever properly diagnosed, which he hasn't been, which is so fortunate that he never was, because he's able to do extraordinary things. But that would have been a limiter. But there are so many children now being told they're on a spectrum and that they need to be medicated, they need this, they need that. And that is creating huge new problems that, again, they do not have the systems in place for, because the children are being born with multidimensional abilities or absolute pinpoint focus, where they need self-soothing in a whole range of other ways. And there's just so much stuff out there that we're not, it's very hard to be all over everything that's going on.
Yeah, it's true. You have to be researching like 24/7 just to take it all in. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you do. So then you have to narrow down, and you have to, and this is where people get very afraid when they see that the world is changing rapidly, that there are people in different circumstances. And then rather than go, oh, isn't that interesting, but it's not my job to sort that out, they start to feel anxious.
Yeah.
And they start to feel that everything's devolving.
Yeah.
Whereas it's not, it's evolving, and it's evolving the way it's meant to. And if you feel anxious about it, it's obviously not your job to fix it, because that's the first thing we do. When we don't have a solution for something, we get anxious. We step into fear. We know we can't help. Yes, you can't help, but there are others born right now who have been on the planet for many, many years who can help. And it's their job, and they are doing it, and they are going to step into it. My granddaughter has just been given the job in South Australia, you know, and she has got a whole background in all the things that are necessary for doing for advising government on autism. I mean, it's happening. It's happening. Everything's getting better.
That's true. I believe that. And I think if people are not able to help in that specific way, if they focus on their own area where they're supposed to be contributing as a soul, then they're going to not feel so anxious because they feel that they're being constructive and they're able to be of benefit, you know, to the whole. So
do you have to help?
some people don't. Some people just have to be and hold their energy.
Don't have to help.
Some
people. It's interesting because I see archetypes. So, and that's always been one of my big issues when I was younger, very young. And it wasn't until my 40s I managed to turn off a lot of these systems that I had overworking in my physical body. And if it's not your job to help, also don't help. I'm not a helper. I'm not a servant. I'm not, you know, my archetypes aren't like that. They don't run down those lines, but I am a teacher and I am an alchemist and I can bring change by doing nothing.
Yes.
By just rolling along with my day. And when someone sends me a message like you do, I say, yes, well, that'd be interesting. Oh yeah, I'll do that. You know, and that's what we're meant to do. Just respond to what's going on. And if you have a feeling you should do something, do it. Just do it. Act.
Yeah.
We're trained to react, not to act.
That's true. That's true. So coming back to before we finish the conversation on Seven Little Australians, did you love the experience?
It was very difficult.
Was it?
It was extremely difficult. It was not an easy experience. I had no training. I had no TV training. I was doing the HSC and they gave me, I'm not going to dob in the ABC because they broke so many rules, but, you know, that's okay because everything worked out. Everything worked out extraordinarily well for me. But the experience itself was not an easy one. And of course, because I was pathologically shy to the point of, I come from a family of hermits. So if the doorbell were to ring at our house, no one would answer it except I have one middle sister who lives next door to me now. You know, at 6, she'd be the one who'd go and answer the door for the whole family. Or my mother took me to high school, but Sue took herself to kindergarten for the first day. You know, so for me, it was extremely difficult. I had nothing on which to base it. And plus, I had my whole system wide open.
Wow.
So I had information coming at me from every direction. I knew who everybody was just by laying eyes on them, but that's too much information. And so I found it very difficult. Plus, it wasn't, you know, it's the major part. So you work every day.
Yes.
And the other actors never had to do that. And I did. And there's no support and there's no understanding because you're treated as if you've been doing it since you were a child. Yeah. So it wasn't, it was the best and the worst of things. And it took me a long time to work out what it was that made it difficult for me. And it really wasn't for a long time that I worked out how to align my energy system so that it wasn't on overdrive all the time.
Yes, absolutely. Wow. So you're really thrown in the deep end, I guess, but it was an experience on a soul level that you chose to do for that reason. And
absolutely. And dragging a lot of other people through the experience with me. Other souls who that created a funnel for other people who then went on to have extraordinary experiences as well. And the fact that the series got made is incredible.
Yes.
Incredible.
Yes, yes. It's really ironic then that you were, you had probably one of the major parts in any series in Australia. And then you were really, really shy. So you're basically going to the most public forum that you could possibly do in this country from being someone who's shy. That's really interesting.
Well, I couldn't understand why they cast me for that reason. But you see, it's an energetic thing. I had so much.
Yes.
I have so much energy, and that's what they saw. And
it's what I see too when I watch it.
You know, and I was not easy either, because at a particular point I would say no, and no one ever does that. But I mean, you know, I'm a country girl. I'm not going to run down there again. Thank you. I don't care if you need another take. I'm sorry. I've been at this for days and days and days, and it's bloody hot, and I'm pretending it's freezing cold, and I have to run. So there were some repercussions to my behaviour, but you know, I thought, well, they can fire me. Now I know they couldn't fire me. It was too late.
Right. But you know that those are the qualities that embody who that character was. So you were just, in that sense, maybe you were taking on some of her, because she was that she bucked the system. She wasn't part of the.
Yes, and then she died.
I know. Well,
we are so lucky these days we're not back there, because they were not good times for people, not good times for sensitive people, not good times for women, and that's what Ethel Turner's writing about. They were very, very difficult times.
Yes.
And now people, how can you complain about today? I mean, what is there to complain about, really? We have electricity, we have running water, we have women are allowed to speak out if they want. We have systems in place for abuse. We have systems in place for drug addictions. We have so many different systems in place. If you need help, you know, asking for it is what you've got to do. All those things. So I'm absolutely a futurist. Bring it on the next, 40 years. I reckon that's what I've got, maybe 45, depending on stem cell research.
Well, yes, that point that you make about the suppression of the feminine and how we've overcome a lot since then is a good one. So how much did the reaction of people after that became, came on everyone's TV screen in Australia pretty much. How was the reaction of people that they would have just embraced you, wouldn't they, Australia, after that?
I had to go back to school.
Yes, yes.
So I went back to school. It's very hard to fit in after that. They don't understand.
Right.
And most people didn't know why I was away. Then you have to fit back in after that experience. But I actually found that I found that easy. You'd think that would be hard. I have no bad memories of it. I was ill prepared for the HSC, of course, and I still sometimes have nightmares about that. But I think there's something within me that always enables me to not take anything. We were having a discussion about ego today, myself and my husband and someone on his Facebook. And the ego is derided. And there's something not quite right about looking at the ego as being a bad thing.
There's healthy ego, isn't it?
Is there? I don't know, because this is something that we don't. So if we're actually evolving, surely our ego is evolving as well.
Absolutely.
So it must.
Yes.
And so some of the old teachings of, say, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, or even 30 years ago, 20 years ago about the ego must now be outdated. So when I returned home, it's one of the clearest things. I had no trouble fitting in with everybody or doing the best I could to fit in with everybody, because that was the appropriate thing. And also because I have the actor archetype, I can blend.
Yeah.
So it's not a problem. But also it was a very good lesson in how I knew I'd had a very, very special experience that they were not privy to. But I knew how blessed I was. And you don't, I can't even think of the right word. When you are truly blessed by something, when you've had an extraordinary experience, which you know has changed your life, you don't go blabbing about it.
No.
You just don't.
No.
It is something that's so wonderful. You hold within you and you just turn up and get on with whatever you have to do.
It's sacred.
It is.
Yeah.
And when you look at life that way, it's very easy then to know how to use your ego. You use it to make you do a podcast like this. You know, you do, because it takes that to actually say, oh yes, I'll talk to you.
Yes.
Because it's not my nature to do that. I'm still the hermit who still likes to hide out. Yeah. So you need that. You need it to push you. Mm-hmm. And it is part of the divine. It must be, because God is everywhere.
Absolutely.
So it must be in your ego. Therefore, and Paul Selig might say, but the ego doesn't know it is. And I think, well, yeah, I've got no answer for that. I mean, it's a very hard argument to have with those who want to argue against me. And I honor that. Yeah. But I think it's a good argument for us all to be having, to understand what is it that makes us get up in the morning? What is it that makes us do things? What is it that makes us step out?
Sure.
Because at some point we're all called to step out.
Yes. Oh, true. In our soul mission or purpose or some way. I, in my interpretation, I would say there was a healthy ego, the positive aspect, and then there's a negative ego. So there's, and you're wanting to find, the balance of that, and an aspect of the ego is really important, like you say, to motivate us, to make us do things, to make us step out of our comfort zone. And so, yeah, I hear what you're saying. So moving on from Seven Little Australians, well, what did you do after that, Jennifer? And I know that you're now script writing, which is amazing. And you also have a wonderful partner that you're married to, Bill Bennett, who is a filmmaker. Do you know, I remember Bill when I was younger, watching him as a journalist, a reporter.
Me too. I remember that.
Yeah. All those
I remember that with horror. I remember that after I agreed to marry him, and I thought, oh, God, it's that Bill Bennett I couldn't stand. Same reaction to the Seven Little Australians book. Same reaction. And I didn't know that was his, because when we met, it was a collision. Prior to that, I'd been working as an actress, and I did a whole heap of things, and some very good, some not so good, as it is. And I'd had the most extraordinary sort of bohemian, wonderful life. And then I met Bill, and it was a great collision, huge collision. And he was a young documentary maker at the time, and he was at acting school. Mm-hmm. And I was at acting school because my mentor from Seven Little Australians had said, come on back, do some more classes. And that's when I met Bill. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't top of my list. He was number 3, and I'd knocked off 1 and 2 and decided they weren't worth it. And then he came and sat down next to me, and I thought, okay, number 3 is sitting next to me. How is this going to go? Well, we were married within 3 months.
Wow.
But it was only just before we were married that he had some, just photos out when he was trying to work out what our wedding invitation should look like. And there was the picture of the smiling, because when I met him, he'd had a car accident. He'd broken his back. Oh. He made a very famous car accident in Australia, and all his teeth were broken. But this picture was a Willisy picture that had been taken for Channel 7 because he was a very, very important journalist. He won the Logie of the Year. That year he won a couple of Logies. Mm. And I could see the big smiling teeth, and I remember this person, and I went, oh my God, it's him. I didn't even know his name. I would just always not look at the screen when he came on and leave a room.
Your intuition.
And it was the creepiest thing. I thought, my God. And I said, but you're
You're
this
that.
person. And he said, yes, I told you I used to be a journalist. I went, but you're this person. Anyway, it's a dreadful thing to do that to somebody you're about to marry, but it was the same deal. And we've been together we've just celebrated 40 years. And and pretty much my working life has been working with Bill, but you know, I had 3 children very quickly, and which is just, to me, the most beautiful part of my life. And we just take risks each and every day.
Fantastic.
And we always have, and Bill's a huge risk taker, and we've put our whole life on the line, I don't know how many times. And we have sometimes won, sometimes lost, but it's never been a problem. And then one day Bill said, this is going back, Bill was in New Orleans. We were doing a film there, and with Burt Reynolds and Saffron Burrows, and he was going to a casting session in New York, and he was very early in the morning. And he likes to drive fast. And this voice told him to slow down. And he pays no attention to voices and doesn't believe in any of that sort of rubbish. And the voice came in really, really loudly and told him to slow down. So he thought, oh, it's really odd, I'm slowing down. And a truck ran across the street in front of him. Green light, he had the green light, but the truck ran the red. And if he hadn't have slowed down, he would have been dead. So he pulled over on the other side and he rang me and told me this. And I said, wow, that's really weird. You know, that sort of thing does happen. And then on he went to catch his plane. And it sat with him for years and years and years that a voice that loudly would save his life.
Yeah.
So then he said he was going to make a film on it. And I said, yes, but you don't know anything about that sort of thing. And he said, yes, he did. All he had to do was research. And you can't find out about a voice by research.
No. Did he think it was the divine God or his higher self, or maybe some sort of, he's probably not into spirit guides and things like that? Did he have any sort of intuition about where that voice came from for him?
Well, he thought it was intuition, and he thought that he would find out what intuition was, because there's not even a decent definition of intuition. There's nothing. At the time when he was researching, he read every book possible. Everybody kept explaining it, but none explained the mystical experience of hearing a voice.
And it's like your intuitions, isn't it, too, when you had that response to the 7 Little Australians book, and you also had that response to him when you first met him. So that's very intuitive as well. So you're a good model of that for him in that sense.
I'm a feeler, whatever they call them.
Yeah.
So there's a proper word for it. I don't see things, I feel energy.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah, well, he couldn't get the film up. He couldn't do anything. We'd argue about it. We'd talk about it back and forth. I didn't know. And he would, you know, there was a lot of door slamming and stuff. And then one night he had a dream, and the dream just told him that he had to make the film. He explained very, very carefully how he had to do it.
Wow.
And he woke up. He rarely sleeps, so that was no big deal that he woke up early. He likes to tell the story of waking up at 4:44 and then deciding to find out what 4:44 meant. And that was most unlike him. But he actually did check what that meant, because he would regularly get very annoyed with me calling numbers at various times in the day, because I studied numerology. And then, you know, by lunchtime, he'd booked us to India. He'd sourced a camera. He was going to follow the dream exactly as it had explained it to him. And then off we went on this extraordinary, life-changing for him, life-affirming for me, adventure, following his guidance. And every time he thought he had it, he thought he knew everything, the guidance would stop. The money would stop. Everything would stop. And then when he had got so frustrated and asked for help again, it all pick up again. And it was so interesting to watch. And it's, you know, a film that's changed lives. And so he's now in the process of making 5 films like that. So there's that one, Facing Fear, we've just done. So we're now all over fear. So we're not allowed to be afraid anymore because we actually do understand how it works and what it means and how bad fear is for your physical body. So we just now just ask, why are we afraid? What is this information telling us? What from our past, what from our childhood, what? Let's just sort it out, work out what's going on here, get rid of it and move on. And the next one, I think, the next one's Hope. That starts in a couple of weeks. And then Purpose. Don't know how he's going to do Purpose. Totally beyond me. I can see how Hope would be done, but not Purpose. And the last one is What Happens to You When You Die, which I think is one of the things that we really need to come to terms with as a group of people, because, I mean, the only sad thing about death is that we don't all go together. We have to do it in this staggered way that creates so much grief and so much stress and so much fear and so much anxiety and so much worry. If we could all just hold hands and go to wherever we're going, it wouldn't be such a big deal. But it's the terror here of not knowing. Once the person has gone over, they know, or wherever it is. I don't know if you're going over or through or around, or they're just here and we just can't see them. I don't know where they go, but yeah.
I have a sense too with his personality that when he comes from a point of being a little skeptical or not really knowing about it, that's a really good position to be in to make the film, because then you're able to fill in all the gaps for the other people that are in the same boat that don't have any sort of foundation of knowledge. So I think that's a really positive thing.
It is, because he's very logical and he's then able to come up with very clear definitions of things, and he's able to apply that extraordinary ability, which I don't have, to actually hone right in on something and find the sore spot, as it were, and talk about it. Really talk about it. He used his own health problems for facing fear, because he is facing a lot of fear and he is overcoming it, you know, just in the most extraordinary way. You know, I'm a bit worried about the one on death, whether he's actually going to survive that one and do it from the other side. I'm not sure. He's quite capable of creating magic like that. We'll see.
Oh, because he has got, for the people listening, he's got Parkinson's. When did he have the diagnosis of that? Was a few years ago? 2000 and...
Well, he doesn't have it.
Oh, he doesn't have it. Oh, okay.
He has a diagnosis of it,
but he hasn't got. Oh, perfect. I personally, when we talk about these things, I don't believe in diagnosis, because often it creates that in the person's thinking. And so I even for, you know, autism or spectrum or whatever, I don't agree with that, because it puts a label on people and then they can create that in their mind. It's very powerful. So it's not putting diagnosis on things.
Well, and he uses it in the film, and he has the cheeky bugger he has, you know, some of the world's great psychics and health professionals giving him guidance as he interviews them.
Yes.
It's very
why not?
It's very
not silly.
But okay, so, and my great fear with this film is, once he used that in the film, and I didn't want him to, was that he then has to answer questions about it all the time. He has to actually front up to people, and people look at him this way and then want to talk about it. And so therefore he has to be the person who has that diagnosis every time. And I'm still not happy with that, because
self-fulfilling prophecy type thing.
Yeah, I mean, we are only what we think.
Yes, that's right.
And
it's all energy.
And I know people find that hard. A lot of people say, well, that's all right for you to say that. But if you think about the greatest things in your life, the things that you've brought forward, you think about the worst things in your life, and perhaps that's even more helpful. You'll realize you've made them happen. The worst things in my life I've made happen. I can tell you that right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. I've thought them into, I've worried them. Before I realized that if you dwell on something, you creating that thing. You know, I might have been lucky when I first did it in my childhood and teenage years to create something spectacular. But after that, I didn't realize I'd done that until I was in my 40s. I didn't realize how powerful I was.
That's right.
So we are creating everything all around us.
And you're creating in your consciousness, but also even when you're asleep, you're creating things. Because I can tell you something, example of creating, that when I watched 7 Little Australians the other day, and I connected with your energy, I thought, oh, I really resonate with Jennifer. I'm going to, and I sat with that. And then I'm also making a film. So then I found out after that, on that night, that, you know, Bill, I had been aware of it for a while in the back of my mind, but I reminded that Bill was making a film as well. And I thought, that's an interesting thing, because that's something I'm wanting to do this year. And then I went to sleep, and I woke up, and you know that stage between being asleep and being awake? I got the voice saying, contact, you know, Jennifer and Bill, Jennifer Cluff and Bill Bennett, contact them. And then I contacted you, and then you responded within a day, and then we were on the phone having a chat. So that's another example of manifestation right there.
Oh, you've got to act on those things. I think there's a couple of things, if I might, just things that I'm really, really, when I work with people, I'm really, really strong on, is that none of us are grounded properly into the earth. So because we don't have proper grounding, we
David
can't.
Maria says that. I just did an interview with David Maria, and he says exactly that.
We can't use our power. We can't use our system. We can't use our energetic system. I asked a lady about this in San Francisco, Francesca McCartney, who runs a school of medical intuitives, training intuitives for the hospital systems through the US. And she said, and she's put it very simply, she says, if you don't, it's like you are like a toaster. You can't make toast unless you plug in the toast. Plug in the toaster, you know, you've got to put the plug in.
Yeah.
And so putting the plug in is so easy to ground ourselves. I always tell people it's like doing the haka. Why do you think the All Blacks always beat Australia in rugby? It's because they do the haka. They ground themselves first. It really is that matter of a little bit of stamping your feet and a little bit of knee bending, hands on your thighs, you know, a bit of this, a bit of that. It doesn't hurt to have your own personal haka every morning, or else, you know, the simple thing of
I don't tell people to do that.
And tap your cheekbones. Drop your energy. You have to drop your energy down out of wherever it's sitting, because it can be sitting out here, it can be sitting over here. Got to drop it.
I've got a grounding mat.
Oh, you've got a grounding mat. Well, you see, I don't. I make myself do it.
Yeah.
And when you're grounded, you can then action.
Yes, I ground in many different ways. I do it through techniques. I put my feet on the ground where I can, and I also have a grounding mat on my bed, and one that I sit with. And to me, I completely resonate with that, with what you're saying, because as in a physical reality, in this 3D reality, we can't manifest until we're fully grounded, exactly like you say, and otherwise it stays up in the upper sort of spheres, and you can't actually draw it in through you into this sort of dimension. So
you can't.
Very
important. You don't have the energy to action. So what most people don't do is they don't follow through. They get the intuition. And we know we don't follow our intuition. How many times do we say, I knew I should have?
Yeah.
I do it all the time. Oh, I got the message and I didn't pay any attention to it. Oh, I knew that was going to happen. Now, look, I've spilled it all over the floor. You know, you get the message before and you don't follow through. And that is one way, and that's good because you know you are getting the intuition.
Yes.
Everyone gets it. It's whether or not you're actually sensing it and feeling it. But to follow through,
Really?
to actually follow through. And the thing that stops you following through is fear. So you do have to find a way of dealing with fear that steps in and says, you're not good enough for that, you can't do that, you can't, you know, everybody's just absolutely extraordinary. And most people listening to this are so extraordinary that I'm just on my knees in awe of a human being, any human being. Don't go telling me there are good human beings and bad human beings. Of course they are. We live in duality. That is just a given. That doesn't mean to say they're not still magnificent in the sense that we're all here learning lessons and some are here teaching in a very negative way. Well, maybe that's what we've signed up for at the moment, and we just have to deal with that. It's not easy, but we've got to get over ourselves and understand that the world doesn't work the way we think it works. Drop judgment is another thing to do. So much easier if you don't judge.
Yes.
You know, 70% of your energy straight away.
That's true. Surrender is the thing, isn't it? And again, that's about
I'm not good at
listening.
surrender.
You're not with you don't like that word. Okay.
I'm not good at it. No, it's a good word. I'm just not good at it. I'm just thinking, well, you're trying our best.
Yeah. That's
you
true.
Know, we all stuff up every day. We all, you know, I've seen the most high powerful people, and I know a lot of them personally, and they know me, and I've read their books and whatever, but I've seen them have to face a situation where they lose their temper, where they, you know, give a prediction and they find out that, you know, it's so wrong, you know, oh, you're having a girl. No, I'm having a boy.
Yes.
Oh, I'm not good at babies. You know, it's like we're all just trying. That's all.
Yes.
And no one has got, I tell you what, if somebody actually had a silver bullet on how to live a good life on this plane, they wouldn't be here. They shouldn't be here, because it doesn't come with a silver bullet. It just comes with a whole heap of people trying to work it out, and trying to work it out as a collective as well, because we're all going to be going forward together. And the weakest of us, the one we say the worst of us, we still have to wait for. We're all going forward together.
That's so true. And could you perhaps share with us what you're working on a screenplay at the moment?
I'm working on a couple. I've got I don't write. I'm a script editor.
Okay.
One of the great joys of my life is working with people about their own lives in terms of story. Because if you're not a hero in your own life, well, you know, you're a victim. And if you're a victim to everything that's coming your way. That's not a good place to be. So I like to work that way. But on a professional basis, I probably have about 3 things going on right now. What I would call a job. A job is when somebody pays you a lot of money and you do not feel that you are fully equipped to deal with it, and you go into panic mode and you worry you're not good enough and you worry you can't deliver. That's a job. The rest I do not consider a job, because I do that quite effortlessly and easily. It will be World War I. It will be that arena of the trenches, which is an interesting one, which I know quite a bit about, and I'm quite looking forward to working with a writer on a screenplay of Australia's part in World War I's Australian story. So we'll see how it goes, but it's a major feature film.
Yes. Oh, fantastic. Wow. What was your greatest, do you think, I mean, obviously when we're asked about what our greatest achievement was in this lifetime, or greatest feeling of fulfillment, it's often our children. But aside from our children, what do you think is something like a legacy, or is it just your presence to be here at this time? What is your greatest gift that you think that you've been able to give at this time?
Well, I never think backwards. So, I mean, you've made me think backwards today. So I have. but I never think backwards. So that would never occur to me to even think of that or to care about that. I know for a fact, having done a lot, having learnt how to do past life regressions and taking people back to past lives and being down that extraordinary path for my own understanding. And I've had so many people in workshops and things tell me that I've been on this planet zillions of times. And so I really think that I'm not too good at it if I have to keep on coming back. Therefore, I'm not really going to really have too much to say to you about that, because I just don't think that, and I know I'm coming back because I keep asking this question, do I have to do this again? Yes.
Oh.
So I don't really, I think I'm just putting one foot in front of the other like everybody else and just walking it and finding out in the end, what we all want to know is what happens after this.
Sure.
And then we come back and we forget, and then we do it again. And then what happens after this? So, but one thing I will say, is it took me a long time to work out that optimism in its highest form is the best way to live.
Yes.
That everything is perfect. And people say, oh, no, you can't use that word perfect. Why not? Why isn't right now perfect? Why isn't this moment perfect? Why is it sitting in a, with dead flies under my feet on a dirty carpet that could have done with a vacuuming in a house that, I'm about to leave in 3 days' time, that I've got so much to do. Why isn't this perfect? Why isn't my workload, which is immense, just perfect? Why isn't, why isn't everything just perfect? It's not something we have to strive for. It just is.
Yeah.
It is the baseline on which we live.
Yeah, I love that.
It is the ground we stand on. Everything is perfect. And if you take that view, then, and I do, then you problem solve in a different way. Oh my God, that's happened. Oh, what can we do next? Oh, have we thought? I know. Oh, this is going to be really good. We could do it this way.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And if the problem hadn't have happened, we would not have thought. It would have just, COVID hadn't have happened, we would not be Zooming. There's just so much that's going on right now where you could look at it one way, but how about you just look at it from absolute optimism and move forward? And that's what I do. We have to drive sometimes 3, 4, 5 days to get from A to B.
Yeah.
We have no problem doing that. No problem. People go, what? Have you ever driven for 5 days in Australia? Across the US? Across Europe? My God, you have the best time. The best time.
You would, yeah.
I mean, nothing is an obstacle unless you decide it's an obstacle.
True. Very true. Yeah, no, that's a great wisdom for people to hear. Absolutely. And you have been even though you're too humble to say it, you've been quite a way shower with your life. You've had some amazing experience. You've really lived life to the full. And, I think that optimism is a really helpful part of that, because that feeling of everything is perfect, because then you're continually creating that within your own sphere. And I think we can all learn from that. I mean, there's so many things that we could critique about our lives and about what's going on in the world, but it's putting the focus on the negative, and it's not really supporting you co-creating your best reality. So I think
I mean, you're absolutely right, but we do all have to acknowledge that there's a lot of programming we have inside us that makes us do that. And when you start to be able to unravel that, I think a lot of ease does come into your life. And some of that programming in the first 7 years of our life, we're not even aware of what those programs are, what the software we have running inside us is. I'm shocked sometimes what comes up for me. And I go, oh my God, I'm still running, I'm still running on that. And we have to be very kind to ourselves, as you say, because we don't know what we don't know.
Yes. Yes.
And other people might know what we don't know, but until we learn it, we don't know it.
You can never put yourself in the shoes of another person too, because you've never had all their soul experiences or their lifetimes or anything, so we'd have no idea from what basis they're living their reality. Sorry, with your past life work. Well, I do past life work as well. I read people's past life, so I can relate to that too.
Do you know why I don't?
Yeah.
I don't have permission to do so. And it is a violation of privacy. And unless the person gives you permission, you shouldn't. And it took me a long time to work out how to stop my ability to do it. And once a teacher explained that to me as simply as that, what you're doing is a violation of respect. I thought, now I can turn it all off.
Yes.
I needed a really good reason to shock my system out of still doing it as a protection mechanism. Where's the danger? Where's the danger? That person over there could be danger because they hurt me back then 5 lifetimes ago. They could be dangerous. So you stop it. You have to learn to stop it, and I did. But someone gives me permission, easy.
Yes.
Easiest thing in the world.
As a healer. You've been like a healer as well in this lifetime with this work.
I'm not a healer.
No? Okay.
No, it's not one of my archetypes. I'm not a healer.
More of an intuitive. Yeah.
I'm an alchemist.
Alchemist. Okay, yes.
Yeah, that's my big one.
I like that word.
Yeah, that's my healer, is an alchemist. There's very few healers in the world.
And it's presumptuous.
It's a rare thing, healer.
And it's a presumptuous word in a sense, because you're just really helping to facilitate the person healing themselves when you're in that process. So yeah.
Oh yes, no, people heal themselves. We don't do anything.
Yeah.
No, the other person has to do it.
Yeah.
And it's easy once people give themselves permission to heal.
Yes.
And they also know it's safe to heal. A lot of people don't want to heal because it could be dangerous. Yeah. And everybody's trying to stay out of danger. They're trying to stay safe. And why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want to be safe? If you have an unconscious core belief that something, even if it's good, is dangerous for you, you're not going to want it.
Yeah. And so much of our stuff is unconscious, isn't it? So much of our programming and
95% of what we do is unconscious. So a lot of people like Joe Dispenza and Bruce Lipton and Judith Richards say that's a lot.
It is.
95% of me is running around.
Reacting.
Reacting, yeah. Instead of acting.
Yeah.
Mind you, Bill does all the acting, so.
Oh, well, it sounds like you've been a dynamo duo in this lifetime with what you've done. You sound perhaps complementary a little bit in your energies, which
yes, he likes big, I like small.
And
he likes action. I like to just stay a little bit quiet and think about it. I don't want to do anything fast. He does everything. Like, no, think about this. Give me a day. No, he just does. No, very much like that.
Yeah.
So that comes with a lot of collisions as well.
Sure, absolutely. Well, it's just been such a joy to chat to you on all these philosophical aspects and everything that we've been chatting about. Well, if you could give a gem, because you do have a lot of wisdom, and also you see the world perhaps in a way that's different to how a lot of other people see it, and so that is always very interesting to talk to people that have a different perception on how everything is working in the world. So what would you say if you were to share a wisdom for what you've learned, apart from everything that you've shared already today? What's something that perhaps would help people who are being challenged by their circumstances or by the world at the moment? What would be something perhaps you would say to encourage people in their pathways at this time?
Well, I think everyone is always challenged. It's always a mistake to believe that you're the only one going through tough times. And when people have survival issues like money issues, they really believe they're the only one. And that's not true, because that's a big issue for a lot of people. I mean, if they actually have safety issues, issues of being in abusive relationships, if that's a challenge, then that perhaps is the most dangerous one. And they really, if they can, need to get themselves out of that as fast as they can, and into safe hands. And there are support for that. There is support, I should say, for that. And they should grab it, not think twice about it. But as to just the challenges of life, that's why we're here. Every time we hit one. Is it because we've been avoiding it for the last 20 years and it's just got bigger and bigger and bigger? With me, yes. That's what happens to me, because I'm a great avoider of things, and then the problem gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And now I have to face it, and it's not going to go away. Well, then you've created it yourself. And the best thing you can do is actually come to terms with the fact that you have done this to yourself, and don't blame anybody for it, and acknowledge your part in it. The minute you do that, then you become the hero. The minute you start blaming, you're the victim of what's going on. And then you ask for help. And you either ask for help on the physical plane, because there's a lot of help out there. But the most important thing is to sit within and get a piece of paper and a pen, because I remember this first happened to me. I had a pad and I was going to write a screenplay. And I was there, and the voice started, and it just this voice that I hear every day now. But you also have that voice within you, and with pen and paper, not on a computer screen, not on notes on iPad, but actually with notepad and pen. Ask for help and write down, and write for a good 20 minutes, and then reread what you've written. Even if it's absolutely rubbish, somewhere in there will be one thing that will give you the next step you take.
Fantastic.
And you get in the habit of trusting the guidance. And, people call it spirit guides, they call it all sorts of things. It's just you with you. It's just a higher version of you that knows what your next step needs to be. If you've created a problem for yourself, which is the challenge you're facing, the solution exists within it to solve it.
Yes.
And it exists within you to solve it.
Yes.
It's very simple. Problem and solution go together. They're not separate things. They sit hand in hand, going, yes, we're here to play with you. Here's a problem, here's the solution. That's what they do.
People have forgotten a little bit how to write, haven't they? Because it's so busy on
The
computers.
reason I say that is very good for the brain. It's very good for the part of the brain that will connect up.
Yes.
Whereas there's something, I do not think, if you're born, say, 10 years ago, I think this probably would be, your brain would be configured for this. But I think with evolution, we are still operating with the way our brains were put together from the time we were 2 and 3 and first given a crayon. And I think that still works best. From my experience of watching people in workshops say, oh, no, I do it on this, and get nowhere. Whereas people with pen and paper are just writing away, and the tears streaming down their eyes, and go, I believe this is saying this and this and this. Yes, I wonder who that is. I think that could be you.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit of a
higher power of you.
I think that's a wonderful thing to encourage people. Just get a pen and just write. And it doesn't have to, like you say, mean anything, particularly when you're writing it, but when you read it back, it will have some.
Well, yeah, when you read it back, but also understand it's for you. It's not for anybody else to interpret. And only you know what it feels like. And also it's the feeling as you're writing. Are you feeling comfortable? Are you feeling confident? Are you feeling calm? How is your emotional body going as you're writing it? Because we are, I mean, I can go on forever about this stuff.
Yes.
I think you wanted to wind me up probably a good 30 minutes ago.
Not at all. I love all this. There is a famous philosopher female who said that everyone has a good book in them, and I think that's probably true. I'm not sure how well it. I'm not sure how well it.
I'm not sure. That's true. Yes, everyone's life is extraordinary.
Yeah.
And everyone you talk to is extraordinary. And when you get them to that point where they start, when you find their passion and you start drilling down as to what their passion is, then it's extraordinary. Their life becomes something mythical.
Mm-hmm.
But what I find, having edited a lot of books, is getting people there is so hard. It's like, excuse me, but you told me before about this. Why isn't this in your book? Oh, no one's interested in that. I'm interested in that. Tell me more. It's amazing how people just discount the most interesting things in their life.
Mm. It's true, because it's happened to them and they think, oh, it happens to everyone, but it doesn't. And then someone external looking at it goes, wow, but because they think it's nothing.
It's nothing. And the things that people think are just nothing are invariably the things they do well, or they're the things they've suffered well. Mm-hmm. And that's equally as wonderful, because a book is the highs and lows. It's not the stuff in the middle. Mm-hmm. Life is, mm-hmm. Life should be calm and peaceful in an extraordinary, passionate world. You can still be the eye of the storm.
Yeah.
But you have to know what the storm is that's going on around you. You have to pay attention to the world.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with knowing what's going on, as long as you're not stepping into fear.
Sure.
As long as you're not being triggered.
Yes. So if people ask, how do I see this movie Facing Fear? It's not available for the public at the minute, is it? So
it will be. I mean, we'll do screenings later this year. The best way, I think, is through Bill's website, which is...
I'll leave a link below.
Yeah, I mean, that's... and the Facing Fear website. If people want to actually host their own screening in Australia, this is in Australia, or pretty much the rest of the world as well, it's through fanforce.com.
Right.
And it's on their slate of films, and all you need to do is just tell them where you live and what you want to do, and they'll organise everything for you. You just have to bring your community to the screening. That is the hard bit. And then the most interesting film, I do think intuition is not understood, and I do think PGS, Intuition as Your Personal Guidance System, is a fabulous film for anyone who wants to really connect with their own intuition, and with lots of keys in that for opening them up. That's available on, I think you just Google that, and it costs a couple of dollars to rent it or something like that. I think. Being the producer, I should know more about this. You can see that my mind is not quite. I'm not a salesperson,
and that's a good thing.
No, not really. To be an entrepreneur, I wish I was, but I'm not. Don't have that.
Well, you can't be good at everything. Well, thank you, Jennifer. It's been such a joy to chat with you. I really enjoyed it. I hope you had a good time, and I'm sure that there are many things there that we've chatted about that will inspire people listening, because chats like this, I think, are really important to the collective, and I really appreciate your time and everything that you're doing. Thank you, and I hope we can continue connecting, and I'll leave all the links below as well to all the things that
you would mind. That's fabulous, and thank you so much. It's been fun.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, thank you, and thank you everyone for watching.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.